Hello NFL fans and welcome back to Wall of NFL channel. In this video today I'm going to be talking about all of the games from Super Wildcard Weekend and my thoughts on the teams coming out of each game. The Bengals started their game against the Raiders trying to get the ball in the hands of their best players. The connection between Joe Burrow and Ja'Marr Chase has been fantastic all season and has been really cool to watch. So Burrows on 4 occasions in the first drive threw it to Ja'Marr Chase and he caught 3 of them for over 30 yards. And I think that was probably the key to their success, getting stuck into the game early on and trying to dominate the game from the off, getting their top players comfortable playing in playoff games. Joe Burrow, Ja'Marr Chase, and a lot of all of the other players for the Bengals haven't been to the playoffs. And the Bengals haven't been to the playoffs since 2015. And with all the changes to their team and the coaching staff, I think it was good to try and get the ball early on and, as I said, get it to their best players. The Bengals were up by about 7 points for pretty much the entire game. And I know they got a bit of a funky touchdown early on when the ref blew the whistle before the player actually caught the ball. So maybe technically by the letter of the law it shouldn't have been a touchdown, but they were looking really hot and they were probably going to score anyway. So I don't think it changed the outcome of the game too much. And it was so early on, the Raiders really should have adjusted and they could have probably gotten back into the game had the Bengals allowed it and had they played a little bit better. Derek Carr and the Raiders were really close to getting that touchdown in the final seconds, but unfortunately Derek Carr threw an interception, handing the Bengals the win. I think the Bengals do deserve it on the season. They have been playing better than the Raiders all year. They won their division. They have an exciting young team, and they were able to keep Max Crosby at bay pretty much the entire game, so I think they probably deserve to win it in the end. Saying that though, the Raiders have had a very turbulent season with John Gruden emails, the Henry Ruggs situation where he got his DUI and unfortunately killed a lady as well. So I think that they had a pretty successful season with all of those things considered. And they're probably going to hire their interim head coach, Bisaccia, and I think he probably deserves it after being the only interim head coach to ever make the playoffs with a team. They have a lot to build on this offseason and can probably compete with the Chiefs if they play their cards right this offseason. The Buffalo Bills absolutely dominated the New England Patriots this weekend. I thought it'd be a little bit closer considering Bill Belichick for the Patriots is the best head coach in the league and maybe of all time. And the Patriots have always been in close, hard-fought games. They don't have a lot of flair and much creativity offensively, but they've always stuck in games, no matter how crazy the other team has gone. But the Buffalo Bills this weekend, their offense was unstoppable. They scored 7 straight touchdowns to start the game, which took them up to 47 points. I mean, their kicker did miss a couple of extra points, so it could have been 49. But they scored 47 points, which is just insane, especially against a team that has been so reliable defensively in the Patriots. Josh Allen had an amazing game, throwing for 5 touchdowns, and he had an almost perfect passer rating with 157. He had 308 yards and was just fabulous, even on the ground as well. The Patriots did have 1 or 2 really good moments, but the Bills just ended those moments immediately. Like in the first drive, the Patriots looked like they were driving down the field. They looked really good, but then all of a sudden, Mac Jones is about to hit his wide receiver in the end zone until Hyde comes and intercepts it. And as I said, it's just kind of those things all game. They blocked an extra point, but still they weren't able to capitalize and create any momentum with the Bills being so brilliant all night. Defensively, offensively, no one put a foot wrong. And in the absolutely freezing temperatures, I was so impressed that they were even out there. So the Patriots are going to need a big offseason to compete with the Bills next year, but it looks like they're on the right track, and Mac Jones does look like a decent quarterback. The Buffalo Bills, on the other hand, they continue their season and they travel to Arrowhead to play the Kansas City Chiefs next weekend. And that is going to be a massive matchup. I thought that was going to be the AFC Championship game, but the Titans managed to sneak their way into the number 1 seed this year. The Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills look like the biggest heavy hitters of the AFC, and this definitely is going to be the game to watch next weekend in the Divisional Round. Probably the easiest game for one team this weekend was the Buccaneers absolutely demolishing the Eagles. The Eagles, they just started the game with absolutely no hope. The Buccaneers scored a touchdown on their first drive, and then the Eagles went 3 and out in their first 2 drives, and even from that point forward, the Eagles had nothing. There were no moments like the Patriots had where they potentially could have gained any momentum, but the Eagles they just had absolutely nothing. And Jalen Hurts and the running game could not get going, and that was pretty much their game plan. The Buccaneers have one of the best rush defenses in the league. I think they were actually first in the 2021 season. So there's no surprise that they were able to stop the run, but the defense just played out of their skin, and it took all the way up until the fourth quarter for the Eagles to get on the board. The Buccaneers were up 31 points, and I was actually very surprised that Tom Brady stayed in the game. I think the Buccaneers could have easily kept the Eagles out of the end zone or kept them from scoring even a field goal had they not tried to end the game a little bit quicker. They allowed the Eagles to move the ball down the field a little bit just to get the clock moving, and I think it kind of saved their blushes a little bit, allowing them to score those extra 15 points in the fourth quarter. It looks like, though, Nick Sirianni and the Eagles did have a pretty good season overall, considering that he's a rookie head coach and the roster is nowhere near playoff ready compared to a lot of other teams in the NFC. The Vikings and Saints, I think, both have better rosters, and yet the Eagles still made it with a game to spare. They did have a pretty easy schedule, though. They are in the NFC East, which is definitely the worst division in the NFL. But this offseason is going to be pretty key. Gives some Jalen Hurts a little bit more pieces around him to help that passing game, because maybe Jalen Hurts isn't the best passer of the ball. In fact, I think that if the Eagles are going to win another Super Bowl, I don't think Jalen Hurts is going to be that guy. Saying that, though, he is excellent on the ground, and the Eagles' running game is really what carried them to the playoffs. All in all, it was a pretty easy victory for Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. Brady was able to distribute the ball to Gronkowski and Mike Evans, and it didn't take them an awful lot of effort to, I think, beat the Eagles. They're going to have a much tougher test next weekend when they play against either the Cardinals or the Rams. This is filmed on the Monday. I think this is probably coming out on the Tuesday, so I haven't watched the game yet, but by the time this video comes out, you'll probably know who's in it. They'll have a much tougher time against whichever team they play because both the Cardinals and the Rams are really good. So I think next week, and potentially against the Packers if they make it there as well, we might see a little bit of difficulty with potential offensive line injuries against the Eagles this weekend, and also the lack of weapons, really, because the Buccaneers are now without Leonard Fournette, Ronald Jones, their 2 best running backs. Antonio Brown stormed off, and Brady's missing a few more players as well. So that might make it a bit tricky, but I think the Buccaneers are probably still one of the teams to beat in the NFC. The 49ers dominated the first half and third quarter with their extreme physicality in the running game against the Cowboys. The Cowboys didn't really have an answer for the running game as Eli Mitchell and Deebo Samuel ran all over them, and Deebo Samuel had a great game yet again. The offensive line, though, definitely has to be the MVP for the 49ers in this game. The Cowboys did get a little bit of hope in the second half and about the fourth quarter with a big 4th down conversion on a fake punt and an interception as well, which led to a 10-point swing, bringing the Cowboys right back into the game. The Cowboys did really have a big problem, and that was the penalties. The penalties really hurt the Cowboys, and in the end, that's what cost them the game. The Cowboys did get another chance to win the game with about 40 seconds left on the clock after the 49ers ran down an awful lot of it. But Dak Prescott made a strange decision to go on a QB draw, run down the field, and then try and spike the ball with not long enough left. So unfortunately, the Cowboys weren't able to do it on a bit of a funky play call. Maybe Kellen Moore or Dak Prescott's to blame for that weird one, but they did need to get a little bit closer to the end zone before taking a few shots and Hail Marys and things. So I think it was the right call to get further down, but on a QB draw to let the clock run out, it's a bit of a funny one. In the end, though, the penalties for the Cowboys were no doubt the worst. They had 14, and a lot of them in really key situations, handing the 49ers first downs when actually their drives would have just ended had the penalties not occurred. This may have actually been the Cowboys' year to go far, so it's a bit of a disappointing end to it for the Cowboys because they had some good young players in defense and some experienced ones as well on the offensive line, and I just think this actually could have been their year. if they didn't have the penalties, maybe some coaching problems along the way, I don't think Mike McCarthy is quite good enough to get back to another Super Bowl. Of course, he did get there in 2010 with the Packers, but I just think the Cowboys were one step too short, one step away from the Packers, Buccaneers, Rams, that elite quality in the NFC. The 49ers do go on next week to play against the Packers, which will be a really tough game. But week 4, I think it was, when they played against each other, was a great game and it came right down to the wire. So here's hoping it happens again. There were a few big dominant wins for a few teams this weekend, and the Chiefs beating the Steelers was another one of them. The Chiefs were unstoppable, and I've used that word a lot because the Bills and the Buccaneers and the Chiefs were all unstoppable against who they played. But the Chiefs, they had a great running game. They had Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce going mad, and Patrick Mahomes himself had an excellent game. The Chiefs were able to dominate the Steelers from start to finish, and the Steelers weren't even able to get into the Chiefs' half of the field until the third quarter, which is a bit embarrassing. It was a bit of a pathetic performance by the Steelers' offense, and I did hope for a little bit more for Big Ben in his final game in the NFL. All signs point to the fact that he's going to be retiring, and he's probably going to be in the Hall of Fame in the next few years. So the Chiefs, they head on and they go to play against the Buffalo Bills next weekend, which will, as I said earlier, be an absolutely massive game. The Steelers, I'm not sure they deserve to get into the playoffs over a couple of other teams, but they did make it in, and that is another season in the playoffs under Mike Tomlin's belt. Cam Hayward and TJ Watt had excellent game for the Steelers last night. TJ Watt batted down a big pass leading to an interception and picked up a fumble and took it to the end zone, and he was fantastic again this season. There wasn't enough support though for those two good players, and I think that's pretty much what the Steelers lacked. They came out and Deontay Johnson dropped a pass, Harris dropped a ball, and it just wasn't quite clicking for the Steelers. Their quality is nowhere near as high as the Bills or Chiefs or Titans. So I think that in the end, the right score happened, and I think that the Steelers, they had a good season, and it was nice to give Big Ben another game in the playoffs, but maybe he'd have preferred to beat his rivals, the Ravens, in his final game in the NFL. So since I last made a video, David Culley has been fired from the Houston Texans, and Joe Judge, which was pretty predictable, has been fired from the New York Giants. So David Culley, I thought, was a little bit of a surprise, considering he took the Texans to 4 wins with such a bad roster, with Deshaun Watson problems, and basically with a third-string quarterback, a rookie quarterback at that, who had the second best rookie season of any quarterback in the NFL. I actually think their season was a bit of a success. I thought they weren't going to win a single game this year, so I think it is a little bit harsh on David Culley, and I think he deserved another season at least, because it looked like they had a bit of a culture and they were really competing in every single game. Even in the last game of the season, when they were down by how many points against the Titans, they still made a comeback and ended the game with just a 3-point difference between them and the Titans when it ended 28-25. So they always fight no matter what under Culley. So I think it maybe was a little bit harsh on him getting fired. Joe Judge, though, it looked like he was trying to get fired in his last game against the Washington football team. So maybe he did deserve to go. I think that the Giants is a bit of a tricky job. I'm not sure a lot of head coaches are going to be wanting to go there, and nor the Texans as well, as they're about to trade their franchise quarterback. They might get a bit of a haul from it, so maybe that's a few pieces that they can use to rebuild. So maybe not too bad, but I mean, they need a quarterback badly, and I think it'll be pretty tough to succeed without one there. Thank you so much for watching this video on the wildcard weekend and a couple of coaching changes that I threw in there as well. Please also head to wallofnfl.com where you can see breaking news, some articles, and of course follow along for live scores as the games are happening. And also check out our social media pages on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok, and be sure to like and subscribe if you can.